Hello, thank you for watching this video. My name is Joza. I'm a writer, speaker, and an executive coach. And I authored this book, Winning Speech Moments: How to Achieve Your Objective with Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere. And obviously, when you're trying to land an executive level job, that is an objective that you want to achieve. So pick this book up on Kindle, Amazon Kindle. It's reasonably priced and you will learn a lot. It doesn't go specifically into how to land an executive level job, but when you're doing that interviewing, you are going to be speaking. So I think this book will help you a lot. And I use a lot of the techniques when I'm coaching. So I do two things. I coach clients who have to give high stakes speeches. And second is I coach people who are 80 to 90% there in landing an executive level job. So I get engaged when they have an interview. Now they're scared. They need that confidence to get up to 100% so they can get the offer and then decide whether they want to take the job or not. So in this video, that's exactly what you're going to see. Vinny, the client that you're going to see in this video that I interview, is going to talk about his situation, his specific situation. Now, again, your situation is going to be different, but if you get to the point where he has identified a company, but he's scared, he doesn't know what to expect. And even he had 30 years of experience, most of it, I believe all of it in the military. He never had gone through this type of an interview. So I got engaged right from the beginning, or not from the beginning, to the point where he had the interview. I helped him out. Then we had another session. So at most it took 2 sessions. Typically, when I get engaged, I'm gonna spend either 2 sessions minimum or at most 4. That's all. And I charge $500 per session. So roughly you're looking at an investment of $1,000 to $2,000. And believe me, if you're at a point where somebody's interested in you, it shouldn't take more than 2 to 4 sessions. Okay, that's my success stories. Everyone that I work with, either the minimum took 2. Most of them actually take 2, by the way. Occasionally, some have dragged out to 4, and a lot of it had to do with fear. The person had a lot of fear. There was some language issues, things like that. And I helped the person get over that. And hopefully I can even make a video of another one where it took 4 sessions. Okay, so watch this video. I think you'll pick up a lot from watching this. And at the end, if you're at a point where Vinny is, hey, give me a call. I think $1,000 to $2,000 is nothing when you're looking for an executive level job that can change your life. Okay, I'm here to help you. Watch the video. Hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, or even any tips that you may have to offer with your experience, hey, let me know. Give me a call. Let's talk. Okay? Enjoy the video, and I'll see you at the end.
My name is Vinny. I am transitioning out of the Army after almost 31 years of service. And so I got, through some folks where I'm stationed, I was connected to Hire Heroes. And Hire Heroes is an organization, it's a nonprofit organization that assists with resumes, establishing or making effective your LinkedIn profile. And then the next step, once they do all of that, is they link you up with a volunteer mentor coach. And for me, and I will emphasize, fortunately for me, I was connected with Jay. And when I look back on this, because Jay and I were connected, I believe, a little over a week ago. And we've had several video teleconferencing discussions on what we think would be a good way to proceed to help me with my transition. And as he mentioned in his intro, at the same time, I was cognizant of providing information to him that would be useful as he helps other transitioning service members during their process. So that's it for me. In terms of a little bit of background, the situation, as I said, over 30 years of service in the Army, and the approach that I took was, and I would say this is probably something useful that I didn't quite grasp initially, but as Jay and I worked through this, it became quite clear to me, is sort of figure out what it is that you would like to do. And that is not easy. That is not easy. And what one needs to do, particularly if you have a family, I'm married, I have kids, if you've got to consider others in this, there's the approach I took was, okay, I have a two-part decision I need to make before I proceed. The first one is, where do I want to live in my new, once I transition in my new, whether it's a career or a job or, however you want to look at it. And then, as I already mentioned, what is it that I want to do? What is it I want to do was very difficult to sort of figure out because I had quite a few options, and so it was difficult to narrow down. And what was quite easy for me was I decided I want to stay right where I am. I don't want to move from where I live because I'm established in the community. I'm familiar. And I think what was probably important for folks to consider is if I don't move, that's one less, I guess, aspect of potential chaos during the transition that I don't have to deal with. Because I would imagine not only transitioning, but moving to a new place I may have visited but never lived, learning that new place and trying to figure out what the job is. And I just think that's maybe too much for folks to sort of bite off. But you have to decide that, is the location more important than the job? So I did that. We decided we're going to stay put. And then the job, I knew that because I'm a senior, member in the military, that I didn't want to necessarily start at the bottom, if you will, in the corporate world. I guess that would be sort of an associate level or something like that. I knew that I would probably struggle with that because, over my 30 years of service, I've learned to quickly identify problems and solve them. And I think as an associate in a company somewhere, my boss, manager, director, whatever that would be, probably wouldn't appreciate me quickly identifying and recommending a solution because maybe they don't work that way. I don't know. So I knew whatever it was, it needed to be some sort of management level because I can also apply all of my leadership skills that I've learned over the 30 years, coaching, teaching, and mentoring soldiers to be successful. I can do that in the corporate world because a lot of those traits transition easily. The difference, in my estimate, would be the delivery of those, recommendations and coaching and mentoring and all of that. Because in the military, as you may or may not know, folks are very direct. It's a very simple thing because the thought process is, hey, we have a mission we have to accomplish. We don't have time for a lot of chatter and wringing of hands and all that. We got to make a decision. Let's have the information. Okay, this is enough information to make a decision and then move forward. And maybe that doesn't translate well, so you would have to consider how you deliver that. One thing that I really had no clue about, which I credit Jay entirely, instrumental in my success in finding a job, is how to do a job interview. Because I had not done that before. Interviewing for a position in a military organization is nothing like interviewing whether you're going to be dealing with an HR representative or CEO, COO. In my case, I initially interviewed with the COO. And then from there, my follow-up interview was the CEO/president/owner. And Jay was instrumental in helping me understand, what is it these folks think about? What would they be looking for? And to be perfectly honest with you, Jay hit the nail right on the head, because the CEO told me the reason he liked me versus the other folks that he interviewed, and I think he interviewed about 10 different people, was I went into the meeting trying to understand the job and the business, and how is it that I fit into something that's already going on and make myself valuable to them. Whereas a lot of the other folks he interviewed basically told him, hey, I'm going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen. I'm going to make you a millionaire. And he told several of them, hey, I'm already a millionaire. Why do I need you? That's what, and he felt as though those folks weren't interested in what the job and the business is. They just wanted, they wanted a big salary and so on and so forth. And then he told me, and I quote, Vinny, you were asking all of the right questions, and you were focused on learning what my business is and how will you fit in. And that's exactly what I was looking for. And I felt good about, and I felt that you were extremely sincere during our discussions. And that's what set me apart from others. And those questions that I asked is what Jay and I worked on when we sort of developed a strategy on how do I approach this, thinking about, business and what's important to CEOs and COOs and that sort of thing. That was absolutely invaluable. And again, I know I've thanked you, but again, Jay, I'm very, very grateful for your help with that. I don't think it would have turned out the same way because I didn't know how to approach it. So absolutely wonderful. So the outcome was they said, hey, we would like to extend you an offer. And if you haven't already heard it from Jay, as you will hear from Jay, that is the goal of your interview for a job, is for whoever the hiring person is, whatever their level is to give you the offer. And the way he explains it, because initially I was like, I don't, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know what the difference is between the offer and the job. I watched a few of his other videos, and then we sort of discussed it, and then a light bulb came on, and he's absolutely right. If you think of it as you're in this interview for them to offer you the job, you have been successful, because once they offer it, then you have some leverage to sort of figure out, okay, how do I want to respond and proceed? Do I want to, okay, thank you for the job offer. I understand you are offering me the job and these are your terms. Now you have time to say, okay, let me think about it. Let me get back to you, that sort of thing. That's exactly what I did. And I felt as though, and I could be wrong about this, but just based on my several hours worth of interactions with the president/CEO, once he extended the offer to me and then I had some discussion about it, I felt as though now and this was my goal, I'm in control of our meeting. And so I have the leverage and the ability to sort of drive the discussion in the direction that I want, in terms of what I would like to do, compensation, those sort of things. And I will tell you, it absolutely worked. Because he made his offer, I thought about it, I discussed it, consulted, and then I came back with a counter offer. And not only did he accept my counter offer, but he sweetened the deal, and I can't get into the specifics, but with things that I had no idea even go on, and it for lack of better terms, it blew my mind. I said, wow, I have absolutely picked the right company to be on the right team, because the things that he told me in terms of compensation, future stuff, it's incredible. So Yeah, so that's the outcome. And again, I really do owe it all to Jay for the strategy we developed. Granted, I'm the one that sat in there and delivered it. And, my personal communication or interpersonal communication skills with the folks that I interviewed with obviously are a factor. But Jay gave me the tools and the strategy to put this thing together. And it was very successful. I think what's important for folks to understand is, yes, what you did was you took what I was saying and you, for a lack of, I think probably the easy way to understand is you translated it into corporate, non-military speak so folks can understand it. Because somebody's been in the military for 10, 15, 20 or more years, the military has a certain way of talking, a lot of acronyms, and just the words are different and so on and so forth. Folks that have never been around them, they don't know what that stuff is. And so I think what you added to that was extremely important and useful. So when I had the first interview with the COO, and of course you and I talked before then, you coached me on how to approach it, and I think the takeaway that you gave me, and then I followed up and used that again, and it didn't take much effort, and maybe that's just this particular case was, hey, you've been successful, always steer away from your past, but when the time is right, sort of apply those success stories from the past into the future in what this new job is you want to do. And I felt from the first interview, right from the opening statement with the COO, he says, "Look, I've read through your resume, and obviously you've had a very successful career, so we're not going to worry about that. That's good. That's the reason you're sitting here to begin with." So I felt, okay, that's a positive thing. I don't need to attempt to translate what some of those things are in terms of military leadership situations that maybe could have been written better in my resume or something like that. So that was positive. And then the next interview was with the president, CEO. I think I felt like it was going my way when he was talking a lot about what the job would be, and then I started asking a few of the questions that you and I discussed, Jay, on, hey, maybe ask this, maybe ask that, that would help you get a better understanding of what you're getting yourself into. Plus, at the same time, maybe it conveys to this president that, hey, this guy actually cares about why he's sitting here in front of me, as opposed to he just needs a freaking paycheck. And he said, after the first question, he said, that is a terrific question, and I'm glad you asked that. And so that was good. And then I had another question, and he sort of said something similar, excuse me, but in a different way. But then he followed up with a lot of information about the company that I don't think that typically someone would share with folks that don't even work there. And so I was like, wow, he's given me a lot of info and insight, and I mean, he hasn't even extended the offer to me yet. And I said, I think based on the way he's answering my questions and all the other information, I think this is going very well. I feel 85% confident that I'm the guy that they're looking for, in terms of them acknowledging that I'm the right guy. And then it just, it kept getting better and better and better from there. So at the close of that first meeting, when he extended me the offer, he basically told me, he says, okay, take your time. I know you need to think about it and all of that. Give me a call tomorrow, and we'll go from there. And they said a couple other things, but it sounded like he had already made up his mind. I was pretty doggone excited. I got to be honest with you.
You should be.
I tried something new and it worked out, and I was like, wow, this is. And I even told him, I said, I'm excited to be joining the team. Because I will tell you, before you sort of set the stage for me, it felt like in my mind that my interviews are going to be interrogations, because I've seen it on TV and that sort of thing, and I was doing a lot of reading on LinkedIn, and then they would have links to different things, and it would talk about job interviews and be prepared to answer these questions, and I was looking at these questions. I'm like, my God, this is exactly feels like I'm going to be interrogated. And then you described it. Hey, this isn't an interrogation; it's a conversation. And I will tell you that during this process with this company, every time was a conversation and not an interrogation. And I made a little note, because I had my notebook. I had it right there with me. I'm used to doing that in the military, making some notes when I'm having meetings, discussions, and so I continued that. But I wrote little notes, and I used my system on how I do that, and I basically put, like the Ghostbusters symbol, no interrogation, have a conversation. I made little notes of these little nuggets you gave me, so I would remember that, hey, they're not interrogating me. They just we want to talk about, am I a good fit for the company? Is the company a good fit for me? It's a two-way street. It isn't, they're not doing me a favor by allowing me to come in and interview. I think perhaps for some folks, and this is how I sort of looked at it, is I think I'm doing them a favor because they have a need and I can fill that need. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. It's not, they hold all the cards and, oh, please, sir, please give me a job. It didn't feel like that at all. I had gone to some sites. I believe it was salary.com, and there was another one. I think if you Google them, those will pop up. And essentially, what I was looking for initially was, hey, what is the going salary for the position that I was looking into, because I didn't know anything about it. And then, like on salary.com and the other site, you can sort of you pull up these menu of things, check number, years of experience, level of education level, certificate. It just depends on what it is you're looking for. And so what I did was I found information, and it looked, like it sort of gives you the results, and it's a range. Hey, the lowest to the highest, and here's the average for the country, so on and so forth. And then you can go look, who's, how much is somebody getting paid for this at this location and that, and just sort of figure it out based on experience and all that. So I had a ballpark figure on, what I thought. There's some holes in that, not really strategy, but, because you can't put all the information in. And plus, I personally didn't have all the information. I barely had any information on the company in terms of size, resources, employees, what their profits are, and so on and so forth. So I just had to make a guess. But I took that info, so when I went, I had an idea of what I thought would be good. And then I read somewhere, and then I believe you and I discussed it. You said, yeah, that's absolutely right. And what I learned was, and I applied, and it worked out very, very well. Because they, when I had my initial interview with the COO, he says, okay, when you come back and sit down with the president, be prepared to talk numbers. How much do you want? So on and so forth. And like I said, I read, and you and I discussed, and we developed a strategy. Avoid giving them a dollar amount at all costs. Because you could be way off base and you're coming in at X dollar amount, and they already have in their mind, well, we're going to pay this much. And now you potentially just left $40,000 on the table, and they're like, well, okay, we'll take that lower offer. I'm not going to tell you that I was actually going to give you more. I mean, because they're a business, they're make money, and you leave $30,000 on the table, that gives them room to do something else with it. So we developed a strategy on ways to put the ball back in their court. And essentially the sentence I used was, and it was factual, but I think the delivery was good. And, you and I worked on that, Jay. Essentially I said, look, because he got to, okay, so, what do you think? How much would you want for this position and all that? And I basically, a little bit of discussion leading up to it. And then I essentially said, look, I got to be honest with you. This is all new to me. We've been sitting here, together now going on 2 hours. I met with the COO the other day for an hour. I got a good feeling about you guys. I mean, I like the way you do business. I feel like I can trust you. I think we have some commonalities on how we see things. And essentially, I trust that you'll be fair with me. So, this is how, we discussed how I see, here's you're telling me what the job is. Here's how I see I do that job and what I think I'm doing to add value to you and the company. What is that value worth to you? And that's when he started going into specific numbers about the company, which is more of the sort of insight. Like I was telling you, man, he's given me a lot of info that I don't think normally. At that point, I knew his mind was made up, that he wanted me. And so he says, okay, and he gave me numbers and this and that, and he told me what. He gave me some salaries of what some other employees in the company are. It was in confidentiality, and the reason he did it is so he wanted to paint a picture. Hey, here's where I am in terms of liquidity. I can pay. This is where I am. This is my profits last year, this year, all that stuff. And then he gave me the offer. And like I told you, I thought about it. I made a counter offer. What I thought would be not unreasonable and very, very close to what I thought the job would be. And in terms of what I learned on salary.com and the other, I ended up in the 75 percentile, which not bad for a guy, walking in from having never done this, specifically what they're looking for me to do, and being in the 75 percentile, which I think probably in the corporate world, that's somebody who's been with a company 15, 20 years, they're moving up and the company has invested in them and all of that. So I felt very good about it. Let me start with the resume, and something I didn't bring up, and so this will again make you feel good, like you just described. The president never even looked at my resume. Never even saw it. Didn't ask to look for it. Nothing. All he said was, "Hey," he told the COO, because the COO brought me in when my follow-up meeting with the president. He brought me in and says, "Okay, hey, this is Vinny," so on and so forth. We exchanged pleasantries. And the COO says, "Do you need his resume?" He says, "Nope, I don't need it. I haven't looked at it. I don't need to look at it. I know what we're getting." I think the reality is, if folks are looking to say, look, you served the military for 25, 30 years or more. You've been successful. I know you can succeed. So let's talk. Let's set that aside. You're a successful person. Let's set that aside. And now let's look at, all right, how are you? How do you interact? Are we connecting? How do I feel? And this is what I'm imagining, him sitting there across the table from me. How does this person make me feel I'm interacting with? Do I feel comfortable? Does he feel sincere? Or is it, as he described, some of the 10 other folks he interviewed, is this guy just full of himself? Is he think he's just the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I'm crazy if I don't get him into my, So I guess that's a big part of it. Now, what I will say about the resume, and things could be very different if I was, interviewing with someone else or whatever. I'm not sure, but I think it probably applies. Hire Heroes worked on my resume, and I think when you and I discussed it briefly, it still looked military-ish, if you will. So perhaps I would categorize the resume that we sent you That's sort of version 2, I think. So what I would do, and this is, and if whoever's watching this, if you haven't figured this out yet, when you build your resume, and what you guys have is a generic resume, but when you build a resume, it's specific for the job. So this is, military folks should be able to relate to this. So if the, in terms of the military, if you're given a mission, you have to accomplish something, and your higher headquarters says, hey, develop a plan and do the following. Well, when your higher headquarters says, you need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, well, you take 1 through 5 and you put it into your plan using their words. So they know you're acknowledging what they told you to do. I think a resume, specific to the job, of the job, if somebody's applying for a job, and it's to be, you're going to deliver bottled water to, these companies that have a contract in town, and this is what we're looking for in X, Y, and Z. Well, you should use that language that they have in the job description in your resume. I can, while in the military, they say, hey, you need to, not get traffic violations and all of that. While in the military, I've got 20 years of experience driving multiple different types of vehicles with no violations and no accidents. And, they'll look at that and say, okay, good, that sort of thing. That's all I'll say about the resume for now. But okay, so if I had to do this again, and I've spoken to some of my colleagues, and they've described this, and I don't know if they were being nice, although a few of them, that's not their nature to just say nice things. They said that, Vinny, I don't know if you realize this or not, but you executed a flawless transition, because you started, you prioritize things that needed to be done before you get out. And you just check things off the list as you went. And then when you were fully prepared to commit to a job, follow-on career, whatever you want to call it, you were all in. He says, I've seen folks that, they start. So let me back up. I started about 12 months out. My transition, I began with, so this is what I would do the same. I began with all of my medical stuff, getting all the different body parts that are, banged up and all that, get it all reevaluated and documented and everything, because while, I can walk down the street, with some pain now, who knows what 10 years will be. In 10 years, when I have to, knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't happen, 10 years from now, my back and hips are so bad I have to walk with a cane. I hope that never happens. But so I did all the medical stuff to get it all documented. And then from there, I began, that's about 4 or 5 months into that. Then I began looking at, okay, let me start reading about, how does LinkedIn work? Because I didn't know anything about LinkedIn. How does LinkedIn work? How do you do resumes? And then all these, helpful websites on here's how this goes, here's how that goes, and then reading all this stuff and trying to figure out, well, what the heck does it mean? Because I can't relate to what some of these folks are saying. But I started doing it. Now, what I would do differently is I spend a lot of time figuring out how to use LinkedIn and all of that. And I got to be perfectly honest with you, the job offers I got from unknown people was because of LinkedIn. And really, I could have had half the information on my LinkedIn site. I could have just put 30 plus years experience in the Army. And then like they had that section where you talk about your skills or something. There's like, you could put like 45 or whatever. I could have put about 15 or 20 of those and not have anything else on my profile, my picture. And I think I would have received those same offers. The stuff that the offers I was getting that resonated with me was from networking. People that I had known and lost contact with, they found me on LinkedIn. Hey, Vinny, I see you on LinkedIn. Hey, look, man, I'm the vice president of this company, and we've got this thing going on, and I think you'd be a great fit I've always admired you and your work ethic and, that sort of thing. But a lot of those required relocating. And like I told you at the beginning of this video, I made the decision to stay put. So to summarize that aspect, while LinkedIn could be useful, it's the networking that's going to get you what you want and where you want it. If you need to use LinkedIn to do that, which is a great way to do it, great. But don't lose sleep over, what word you're using in your LinkedIn profile, because at the end of the day, like I said, the honest offers that were, directed specifically to me were from folks I knew or a friend of a friend, and it was just through, networking. So what I did is, and again, because I've been in 30 years, most of the folks that I would consider using a reference are very senior leaders, that were my mentors coming up. Probably, I'd say 95% of them were general officers, that are now presidents and CEOs of companies and all of that. And I reached out to them. Some of them are in politics now. And I reached out to them and said, hey, look, I'm going to start aggressively looking for another job. And I would be honored if you let me list you as a reference. And every one of them came back and says, absolutely. If you need me to write a letter to the president of the company, or you let me know, I'll be happy to. Here is all my info, emails, phones, mailing address, they need to VTC to discuss you, whatever the case may be. So I think, and I'll use us a little bit as sort of an example. What I told myself was, all right, look, first of all, hire heroes. They've got a good reputation. And, a colleague of mine used them as for some assistance in transitioning. Actually, two of my colleagues used them. And so I figured, well, if they're going to find someone who's willing to volunteer their time to help me to be successful in my transition, the first thing I need to do is ensure that I'm respectful of their time and their energy that they're putting forth, because they are volunteering. And the folks that hire heroes is getting, as they described to me, is these are if you know what you're getting, what you want to do, then they try to connect you with someone in that field or whatever. But like I told them, I said, I don't really know. And I think, so you and I sort of started in a clean slate, and how do we proceed? What do we do? But so the first thing is respectful of the volunteer coach mentor's time and effort to want to do this. Don't take that for granted. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is I had to accept the fact that I'm going to have to be open. Honesty is not a problem for me, but I'm going to have to be open because if I'm sort of withholding a lot of information on whether it's my past in terms of how does it relate to what we're doing, or what do I want to do? Well, if I'm not going to give my coach mentor, the tools or the information they need to help me, then again, I'm now not being respectful of their time and effort. So I think it's being open, being honest, and at the same time, and you and I discussed this right from the beginning, we're respectful of the confidentiality of what it is we're doing and discussing. And I think those are important aspects of this. But in terms of how do you do this again? I think applying those aspects that I just discussed, and then knowing the mentoree, the soldier, the hero that's transitioning, knowing what it is you want to do with that time, having a plan, having an agenda. And you were very good about, hey, here's some of the things that I think we should discuss. We're not sure, and we'll do. The first meeting, you and I, it was just sort of a let's get to know each other a little bit so we can understand, and then sort of go from there. And I think that was a very useful way to start off. And I think any sort of relationship, whether it's a professional relationship like this or otherwise, folks need to get to know each other a little bit so they, sort of get some common ground and a common understanding of, okay, here's where we're starting. And I think here's where we would like to go, together through this, whatever the situation is. I would say, let me expand on that. In the military, and everyone, whether you're in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, everybody understands that, military operations and activities, whether it's, you're just going to the range, the field, or for the sailors, you're just doing a quick trip out to the open water and back to port, whatever the case may be, there's always a plan involved in it. We don't do things haphazardly. And so we have a plan. And so I would say, if you're transitioning, have a plan. And if you feel like you're moving along in this process, and then you happen to be connected with Higher Heroes, and then you're connected with Jay, and you're like, man, I don't even have a plan yet. Well, it's not too late. It's never too late to have a plan. And then with that plan, be prepared to update and modify that plan based on the situation, because things are going to change, particularly if you're like me and you're not really sure what it is you want to do. I'll be honest with you. I was, every other day I was coming up with a new idea of, hey, maybe I'd like to try this. Maybe I'd like to try that. And I would discuss it with my wife, and she finally says, hey, Vinny, pick a lane. Because so far in the last week, you've been, opening up a small business. You want to go and get more college degrees. You want to do this. You want to do that. At one point, I was seriously considering being a high school principal. I was approached by a school district. Hey, we want you to come out and be our high school principal. You've got 30 years of experience. Obviously, you know how to lead and teach and mentor. So I had the plan. The plan was evolving as time was going forward, but the basis of the plan never changed. Got to take care of myself and my medical things and get that lined up. I need to start posturing myself for follow-on career jobs, that sort of thing, the financial aspect and all of that. So I would say, have a plan, have a good plan, write it down, constantly check it and update it as you move forward, and understand that there are opportunities out there for you. You just have to find them, and then, not to sound negative, but take advantage of them. In other words, use the opportunities that are made available to you for transitioning, and don't take any of that stuff for granted. And then the last thing I'll say is, don't sell yourself short. So yes, over 30 years in the Army and all of that, speaking of myself, if you're a younger, service member and you only had 6 years in, that's 6 years, or 4 years, 6 years. That's a handful of years where you learned to work in small teams, to be confronted with a new and uncertain situation that you had to adapt to whatever it was, and either follow the orders to accomplish what it was, or perhaps you were in a leadership position, and even if it's over leadership over 2 or 3 people, they're still looking to you. So you've learned some problem solving, and the higher in rank and the more you've done, obviously the problems are going to be more complex. So identifying that problem, solving that problem, leading folks, leading people, particularly in a military setting, is not an easy task at all, especially now, in the world we live in now. So don't sell yourself short just because you're getting into a job you know nothing about, like I'm doing. I know some about, but I'm by no means even close to being an expert in that realm, but I certainly will be. In a matter of 6 months, I will become an expert because that's how I am. But don't sell yourself short. You have lots of things to bring to the table, and that's what you need to present to potential employers. And then the other stuff, the job specific things. Hey, if I figured out how I needed to get, ammunition and rations and that sort of thing from Eastern Iraq to Western Iraq, and I had this much time to do it, and it was successful, then you can certainly figure out how to get, if you're delivering printing paper or whatever it is, how to move X number of pallets of printing paper from the warehouse to wherever its destination is or whatever, using whatever resources are available. If they want you to do it in a way where it's efficient and cost saving and all of that, then you have the ability to do that given the opportunity. The video that you made, the personal video you made and you sent to me and says, hey, here's some things to think about for the interview. That was fabulous. I mean, that was right on the mark. It sort of helped to summarize what we discussed during our first meeting, because it was a lot of information. You and I both acknowledge that, and I wrote a lot of stuff down, but I'm okay taking a lot of info and sifting through and prioritizing and all that. So that video was very, very useful. And so in the future, maybe that's, for future folks as you're working through it, maybe something to consider doing again. And then the other piece is, the timing worked out great for me. It just so happened the day that I got the email from Hire Hero saying, okay, we've got you linked up. You're going to have your mentor is going to be Jay, and this is the time and all that. That same day is the day I was told, hey, we want to hire you for this job. Can you come in for an interview? And so when I said, when they said, when can you make it? I purposely did it the day after we were meeting, because I, like you said, we talked about it. I wanted to ask you, hey, how do I do this? Because I've never done it. And so it was spot on, and it worked very, very well. I found this whole experience very positive, and I know you did too. And I'm glad that we were able to do it. I intend to, if it's all right with you, stay in touch with you, because I think there's probably more things I can learn from you as I move forward. Yep, I got the job, but now how do I, do X, Y, and Z, that sort of thing, if that's all right with you.
The one thing I would suggest as you're making this transition is, and we didn't really talk about this, but since you, I would start thinking about a 90-day plan.
Okay.
You mentioned the word plan.
Mm-hmm.
You had a plan for this. The same kind of planning is something that I would kind of put together, like week by week, like here's what I need to do for this week, and then send it to the manager. So what happens is that the first 90 days are very critical in any job. If you get off to a great start, but a lot of times you don't want to just show up. You just say, hey, I have a plan. I've already been thinking about it. It makes them look like, wow, this guy, because I did that in one of the job. I did that at an interview, and I said, here's my 90-day plan. If you were to hire, here's how I would work for 90 days. This is what I think, like, I need to get familiar with this. I need to start contacting all the people, talk to them, understanding their job better, like all the different things you can think of, and help before you start, so they know that you're already giving a lot of thought for this job before you even start, so that when you go there, that's it. You already know exactly what your 90 days are going to look like. And that makes them feel like, wow, this guy's got his act together. So now that you got a job, you got to start, keep that thing, what you just said, plan is still applies and everything, right? So I would put together a solid 90-day plan, get it validated and saying, hey, here's the plan I put together. Can you comment on it? Because I want to get off to a great start.
That. Put together this plan and show up on day one and say, hey, so I, between the time I was hired and now, I've been sort of thinking about, based on what I know, here's what I'd like to do. Can you give me some feedback on what you think? One thing I did is the president had said a couple of things and I didn't know what they were. And so I did the research before I went back with my counter offer the next day. And before I gave him the counter, I was building up to, the delivery of the counter offer and all of that. And one of the things I said was, by the way, yesterday you had mentioned X, Y, and Z. I did a little research. This is what I think it is. Is that correct? And he really liked that. He says, wow, I said, yeah, you mentioned, I didn't know what it was. Obviously it's important or you wouldn't have brought it up. So I figured I better figure out what this is. So I'm not, flying blind, as it were. He liked that. And then I hit him with the counter offer. And so it was sort of a positive light again of him saying, yeah, this guy, he's not coming here telling me he's the greatest thing ever. He's coming in here, wants to learn this business, understand this job, and then, add the value to the company like he says he can.
Hi, good morning, Vinny. Right after we got off the phone, there were a lot of things I was thinking about. And I said, rather than sending you a lengthy email, I said, let me just record this and send it to you before your interview. Now, I know we discussed about the interview you're having today, and I think you're going to do well. You already have spoken to the president. But I said, it's worth practicing, right? So I kind of put myself into your position. Said, okay, if I was Vinny, what would I do? So this is how I came up with it. I'm going to give you the rough outline. First is the opening is very important because this is related to public speaking, but it's no different when it comes to interview. You're putting on a performance anyway when you're interviewing because it's a speech, but it's one-on-one. So you're putting on a one-on-one performance. So there are three parts to it, right? The opening. The opening is very important, how you start in the beginning. Now, it may not come up here for this interview, but hey, it's worth a try. At least something to think about. So at least you're going in with some kind of a strategy. So the opening, then there's the middle, and then there is the end. And I think we kind of discussed the end, but let me just kind of sum it up, capture it in this video so you get a chance to view it, and then you can decide how you want to approach it. So the opening, typically what I recommend to my clients is, rather than saying, hey, I'm excited to be here, glad to meet you, I would say, set the agenda and say, hey, I'm looking forward to this experience of learning about your company and see how I can add value to your company. So you're talking about the experience of the interview, not about like, I'm here to answer questions and then, say, you want to enjoy the experience because that's the only part you control, the experience. You don't control whether you're going to accept it. You do control whether you're going to accept the job, whether you're going to get the offer or not, or whether they're going to give you the offer. But the one thing you do want to control is the experience. So I would focus on the experience. So you're kind of setting the hiring manager, in this case the president, that hey, he better provide you the good experience. Otherwise, he's on the hook too. So that's how I usually start. At least that's what I recommend. That's how I would start. The second part is the middle. Now, middle can go all over the place. But here's the part that it's important to get control. And one way to get control is to be direct and saying, okay, give me 3 words that you think are key success factors for this position. 3 words in order. Okay, so once you get those 3 words, then you can take each word and tie it to your experience in the military. Okay, and I think we discussed this. So he said, I need somebody who is a problem solver. Bang, you got that word. Well, maybe not exactly. That's a 2-word, but at least it's concept, right? Problem solver. I consider that as one phrase is a 1 word, okay? So problem solver, boom. Problem solver needs somebody, leadership, somebody who can execute. Let's say those are the three words. Take those three words and say, okay, great. Take those three words and then map it to what you have done in the military. Again, this depended as we went over problem, solution, outcome. So problem solver, go back in the military, pick one example where there was a problem. You show them how you solved a problem. What was the problem? What was the solution? And what was the outcome? So that takes care of problem solving. The second one could be leadership. You do the same thing. The third one could be execution. That's it. You now have set the agenda. You now control the agenda. And you got to get that control. Otherwise, they're going to nitpick your resume, and that doesn't help you. You don't want to be focusing on the past. It's all about the future. You want to focus on the future. Past is over. You pick off the things in the past to show them what the future possibility is. That's what you're doing. If all you're dwelling on is a past, they have no idea what you can do for them in the future. So you want to be careful. I don't know whether we discussed that, but that's one of the key things I forgot to mention. You have a really excellent past, but past is over. You now have to see what part of that is relevant to the future for this particular company. And I think by getting those three words, that's it. That's what matters. Then the rest of it, once you got that, you're in control. Then the next thing is how you're going to end it. And we kind of discussed this. The summation has to be the following. You understand the job, and you can say, I understand the job, maybe 1 or 2 points. I have to do this, you have to do this, that, okay? So it's understanding the job, very important. First, you got to know the job. Second is, you can do the job. Map it to the three words. As you see, problem solver, leadership, execution. So now you know you can do the job because those are the three key success factors. Third thing is, I want the job because I will make your company successful. That's your summation right there. That's the close. You've got to close. First impression has to be good. The middle has to tie it, the future, how it maps to your past, how the past can help them towards the future. That's the middle. And the ending is this overall summation. You understand the job, you can do the job, you want the damn job, and you will make them successful based on these three things. That's it. You're done. That's the strategy I would go in with. So at least you have a focus that I went with a game plan. This is no different than football and other sports, right? You have a pregame. That's your pregame. And in the game, if you have a pregame, then you know exactly how to approach the game. Now, again, there are things that are going to come up that you can't really prepare for. You got to improvise, you got to call an audible once in a while. And, you got a lot of experience. Audibles shouldn't be a problem. And then you know how to close it. And then the post game. And in post game, right after you're done, write it on a piece of paper, all the things you did well, what you think you could have improved, and what you need to do. You got to do it immediately afterwards, otherwise you're going to forget. And then you don't need to send me an email if it's going to be a lot. We can talk on Monday, and you can send me a quick email with your bullet points. And then if you want to talk about the part of the post game, okay, let's go over what happened. And so that way you have it documented, we can record it, so you can go back. So treat this whole thing like the way football coaches do. There's a pregame. The game is when you're in there, when you're in the interview. That's the game. And then the post game is what you do afterwards, what you write down, what you jot down, what you did well, what you need to improve, and what your next steps or plan of action is. And then you and I talking, that's the post game, so that you don't repeat the same mistake. Okay, I think you'll do well, but doesn't hurt to be over prepared, because you don't know, this is kind of new. So I just want to make sure that it's better to be over prepared than to be under prepared. Treat it like this is a really a job you really want to go out and do well. Okay? Good luck, and I'll talk to you later. Hi, Joza, I'm back. So I hope you enjoyed that video. There is a lot in that video. It's long, and if you got to this point, I want to thank you, and you learned a lot. Watching that video should give you an idea how Vinny got the job, but also how I worked with Vinny. If you're at this point where Vinny was, you can certainly engage me. And I strongly urge you to do that, because you don't want to be at a position where you're 80%, 90% there. You got to be 100% in order to get the job offer. Okay? And that's my value to you. I will help you get the job offer. And as I pointed out in the opening intro, that I charge $500 per session. So roughly, with Vinny, as you saw, it took 2 sessions, at most 4 sessions. So roughly you're talking about an investment of 1,000 to 2,000. And if this is something you want that has the potential to change your life, and let's face it, if you're working in companies, your goal should be to become an executive. Otherwise, why are you there? If you're not getting to the top, then you're on your way out. As I always tell people, either you're moving up or you're moving out, either voluntarily or involuntarily. That's typically how life in corporations work. And if you're aspired to get an executive job, then you're moving up. And that's what you should be doing. And I can certainly help you get there. That's my value add to you. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a lot from it. And if you're at the point where you're 80 to 90% there, hey, give me a call, and I'd love to find out how we can work together, and let's get a joint win. Okay? Thank you for watching, and good luck.